Hello everyone, welcome back to Turtles Cove Media. Whether you're here to watch, learn, or just decompress for a little bit, I'm glad you're here and we're going to get started today. So, we finished our first game, Pong, and now we're going to move into our second, which is going to be a Tetris game. First things first though, because each game may be someone's first, we're going to go through the basics of what you need to get set up, just kind of go through that process a little bit, and we'll get right into setting up our coding environment and get the foundations laid so we can make another fun and fantastic game. So first things first, so we're going to be using Visual Studio Code, great for doing Python, which is what we'll be doing. We're using the Python programming language. So first thing, I'm just going to bring up my Google Chrome. You can use your preferred web browser of choice. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to download Visual Studio Code. I already have everything installed, but I'm just going to walk through it all with you. So just type in Visual Code. It should be your first Visual Studio Code. It should be your first thing that pops up. And we're just going to open it up and download for Windows. And for me, I can just easily check that it's downloading here. All right. And second thing we're going to download, we're going to just if you can type in Python, it's going to auto-populate for me when I type it in because I've done this before. So we're just going to come to python.org and we're going to download there's an update. But all releases, my suggestion is you always just download the most recent version. Usually, release to release, there isn't always like too big of a difference, but it could change some things. We'll see. I was not aware that there was a slight update, but shouldn't actually change a whole lot for what we're going to be doing. All right, so both of those are downloaded. So I'm just going to exit out. So I'm going to pull up my downloads folder. There we go. So first thing I'm going to want to do, you're going to want to do is you're going to want to install VS Code. I'm going to hit actually no, I'll hit OK. Oh, well, I'll go ahead and close mine. No, I won't, because I have other stuff pulled up. I have notes pulled up, so you'll just open it up, you'll run the installer, everything will be good to go. Just going to hit cancel. Then once you have your Visual Studio Code set up, installed, we're going to install Python. So you should have install. I'm going to have upgrade, and I'll actually go through and upgrade now. Hit yes. Sorry, the video might bug out a little bit. So you just go through, you'll have a few extra clicks. There's going to be probably a button that's going to ask you to add the Python to the paths, and you're going to definitely want to click that. Mine's are already set up. It's just so that whenever you run a Python program, it knows that it's there, or it knows where to look to run the program. Or what to use to run the program, I should say. I'll say at least anytime we are programming with Python, I'm going to try and always use the most up-to-date version that, at least at the time of recording, at the time of doing these projects, whatever the most recent version of Python is, that's what we're going to be doing. Or at least that's what the most prominent version on the Python site, that's what we're going to be using. I'm just hit close. You can go to the website, documentation, all that fun stuff. So, all right. Now, a couple other things you'll want to make sure you have installed. So once you get everything installed, you'll bring up Visual Studio. On this left side here, you want to look for extensions. This little guy here. I can't zoom in. So you're just going to open up extensions, and you're just going to type in Python. And what this is going to do, we're going to want to install the Python debugger, Python, and Pylance, and these are just some of them. they're going to help us out in writing the code, do some auto populating stuff, but just makes the experience better. I do know for sure these two, Python debugger, Python, are required. You're going to have to install those, and I like to have this one because this one just helps us write our code in general. But that's all. Those three things. Once you've gone through, you're going to see a little install button. You go through it, install all three of them. You'll be ready to go. So I'm just going to X out of that, and we're almost ready. So actually, we'll get started actually today. So I'm gonna go File, New File, and everything installed right. You should see Python file here, and you're just going to click that, and we're ready to go. So here I'm just going to come to File and Save As. Ooh, I'm in the wrong folders. Desktop, Game Dev, Tetris. So you can save it anywhere you like. I have a folder for these things on my desktop. I have my lessons, which will be I have them ready to go pre-made. And then all we're going to do is name it. You can name it whatever you want, but I name them with whatever game we're making. So in this case, Tetris. We're going to hit save, and we are ready to go. So this first piece of code is not going to be anything super elaborate. We are just making our window. Depending on how long we go, we may actually go ahead and get into lesson 2, do a combo today, but we'll see. So first things first, the first thing we have to put up top is import Pygame. Now, what will probably happen if this is your first time, if you've first time fresh installing Python, is this is probably going to come up or give you an error. So what you're going to have to do is come down to your terminal, and if you with the fresh install of Python on your machine, you should be able to do this. Leave a comment if you have an issue with what I'm about to do. I can come back in and I'll do a little bit of a tutorial, but Python has something called pip, and it just lets us install what are called libraries. So Python has libraries that help us write code, and in some of these libraries do things for us, so we're not having to go through and do a whole bunch of other coding, or it helps us pick up the pace, so we're not having to worry about a bunch of background stuff. Because you also have stuff like, I think a built-in one is math. Yes, so that's a built-in library that should actually, if you need to do any complex math problems in your Python program, you're just going to call that. It gives you a bunch of extra features. We don't need that. I'm just going to delete it. So if you come down here and come down, type pip, install, in this case, Pygame. There might actually be an update too. For me, it says, oh, hey, it's already installed. For you, it'll just run through a process and install. Now, it still could give you some errors, or it may not. It may behave a little bit weird, or at least Visual Studio may behave a little bit weird. You may have to restart it after you do this, but this is the only import we're going to need at this point in time. So I'm just hit enter a few times, and now we're ready to get started. So first things first, we have to do what's called pygame.init, and this just initializes the Pygame library. So when we use it, it just pulls it up, and now we can actually get to coding. So not going to do anything super fancy. We're just going to get the screen made. So we're going to set up a couple of variables. So with variables, you have integers, which are numbers. You have floats, which are numbers, but they can have a decimal point, so they're more accurate. You can do string or text. You also do booleans, which are true and false statements. And so when you create a variable, if you have a little bit of coding knowledge, you may have some like a equals 5, and then b equals 7, stuff like that. So when we're programming, we want to give as descriptive name as possible, because maybe we step away from a project we're working on for a little bit, or we have to hand it off to someone else if you're doing a more professional thing or maybe a school project. You want people to be able to come in and just know what they're looking at. So we're going to avoid using A, B, C's as much as possible, but it'll happen sometimes. You'll definitely see a few X and Y's in there, which literally it's usually because we're doing coordinate stuff, but I know I'm rambling a little bit here. So when we're creating variables, there's going to be times we're using lowercase or all lowercase, and other times we're using all uppercase. So lowercase is going to be more of our standard variables. Uppercase, we use that for constants, which are just things we don't want to change while the game is running, typically. So our first variables we're going to create is we're going to have screen width equals 800. Actually, no, we're going to do 600. I need to follow my notes. And then we're going to have screen height is going to also be 600. So these are going to be the width and height of our screen. We can change them up. You can set them to different values, but these are just things we want these. Once they're called, we don't want them to change at this point. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a variable called screen, and this is actually going to be our window. And so we're immediately using our Pygame. So Pygame has these built-in properties, so we're not having to program a whole lot, do some back-end programming. So here, with this, we could do one of two things. We can either manually put in these values, and that will work. But anytime we want to come back and change those values, we have to find this line of code and come in and change them. So instead, that's why we created those constant values above it. So all you have to do is come find these and change it, because what's going to happen, this is likely going to get pushed a little bit further down in our code, but these will stay towards the top. So if we want to change that screen size, we know where to go look for it, and we're not having to fumble around with a bunch of other stuff. And so then pygame dot. So now with this, we can come in and set some other properties. So all I'm doing here is when you open up a application, sometimes to the top you'll see the name of it, and that's what we're doing here. This is doing is gonna set the name. This is one of the things that you're usually just gonna throw in there. You're not gonna create a variable for it because you're not really ever gonna be changing that. So we have clock, and that's going to be the clock. This variable is going to be important just because it's going to help us keep track of certain things in our game. And then we're going to create a new constant variable called FPS. So this is just the frames per second of what our game is going to be running at. Not going to do a whole lot yet, but so now we're going to write the very basic of the program, or what's actually going to be running. So we're going to create a variable and call it running equals true. And so now we're going to create what's called a while loop. So we're going to type while running. Oh, oops, I messed up. This is lowercase. And colon. Oh, I see what I did there. Spelling was a little off. So now with this while loop, let me zoom in here. Let me make this a little easier on y'all. While this value is true, everything in here is just going to keep on going. Oop. So we're going to say for events in Pygame. Again, we're pulling this pygame.event from the library, so we're not having to do a whole bunch of extra code. .get, it's handling that for us. Oop. If event type equals I'm sorry, I'm not always the best speller. dot quit. So what this is doing, if if you're doing a while loop or for loop, which all it's doing is if it sees, it's looking at every event, so a button press, a mouse click. If it sees then for anything that happens, it's going to check. If it's something that will result in the game quitting out, that's what this is looking for. We're going to say running equals false. And what that'll do is it's going to run this loop, and if it sees it quit out, so if we press the X on the window, it'll quit out. This will change the false. It'll go through the loop, come back up. It'll see that it's false, and it'll just jump out of this loop and jump to whatever's next. And we'll see that in a minute. Add extra space. You could have all this stuff just on top of each other, but I want to try and keep it a little bit neat and organized. Screen fill, so this is just our background. So we're just going to give a few values here for a second. We'll change this. So screen.fill, so this is our background, so we're given a value of 0, 0, 0. And what this is you have R, G, and B, so red, green, blue. And you can set this to anything you want. So right now we're hard coding this in with just the values we want. So this is actually black, but we're actually going to, up top, we'll put in a constant variable. So if you want to change that, it's a lot easier than coming to find this line. So then Pygame dot display, and what this is every loop it's going to update our screen. And then clock, tick, FPS. There we go. One more click, and now what we're going to do is if you hold Shift Tab, it will tab back. You can also hit backspace, and Pygame dot quit. So now what's going to happen is we're going to run our game. It's going to start up. It's going to run through all this code up until it hits our while running loop, and it's just going to repeat this over and over and over again until we quit out. And once it quits out, once this running changes to false, it loops back around. The while sees that it's false now, and so it's going to kick it to the next line of code, and we're going to have our Pygame got quit, and it'll just stop it from running. So the shortcut to run this is F5 on your keyboard. You're going to want to select the Python debugger, Python file, and what we should see come up is a window. Sometimes it can take it a second, especially if it's the first time you're running it. There we go. That's all we got. And this is something you can mess around with. I'm just going to change this to 128, and it'll change the background color. There you go. See, we changed the red value, so now we have a red screen. Going to exit out. I'm going to change this back to 0. And we're actually running. Don't want to run too long today. Almost 20 minutes, so I think we won't do a double up, but we'll get into branching out into expanding this game next lesson. Again, I thank you all for coming back to the channel, and I'm looking forward to going through this with all of you guys. So please stay safe, have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.